Hi, my name is Mark. I'm from the University of Chichester, and I'm going to be talking on guiding staff towards minimum requirements, or more broadly, working towards consistency. So you may recognize the picture here. This is from Ling's Cars. Um, this has become my benchmark for how websites should not look. And to some extent, it kind of reflects the Moodle I inherited about 7.5 years ago when I joined the university. So I want to talk about how we have worked towards what I'm calling a calmer, more consistent Moodle. And it's important to recognize that when you've got hundreds of contributors, you're going to have hundreds of versions of what they think is a good course page. And it's for different reasons. Sometimes departments have certain things that they want to have on a course page. Teachers have different pedagogical experience, and so they will put different things up on their pages according to their experience. Everyone has a different idea about what looks good, and some people have or think they have good web editing experience, and so they may kind of get their hands dirty with HTML. But unfortunately, all this leads to, for the student, is a bit of a mixed experience where they will go to one page and get a completely different experience from another course page. So we've kind of embarked on a bit of a kind of multi-year kind of process of trying to figure out what we should do about this in creating a consistent experience for students. So when I started, one of the things that was completely obvious was there was a rainbow of colors and text sizes and fonts, and I wanted to take that away. So I kind of removed those elements away from the text editor. We were using TinyMC that had every single button available on it at the time. I also went through the database. When we upgraded from Moodle 1.9 to 2.6, which is the big jump, I kind of went through the database and just cleared out all the inline styling. But I knew that taking stuff away would have to kind of give some stuff back. So we created or made accessible some stylized callouts and some templates. So we use the Atto Styles plugin for doing some callouts. So you can see them on the screen now. These are proven to be really hugely popular with teachers. And we also created templates. So this is one of my plugins, Atto Templates for You. I recently had to rename it because templates is now a reserved name in Moodle. And this allows us to create more complicated templates. So you can see here module details, and they just fill in the gaps. So that's also proven to be quite useful for teachers. Again, it's to kind of bring a consistency together on a Moodle page. We've found that module handbooks have come in a variety of formats. Sometimes they use a book activity, sometimes it's a link to somewhere else, sometimes it's a PDF, sometimes it's a Word. So we created a handbook activity, which is really the book activity with some fixed section headings and some sample content, so it's templated. And what that does also is so these are all the section names. So on the course page, it will also show all the section headings for each section of the handbook. And as I say, it's got some embedded content in there already. So that's kind of really helping towards kind of making it consistent. We also find that a lot of teachers will kind of include their contact details on a Moodle page, other sorts of kind of manually maintained data. So using kind of shortcodes and filters, we're kind of replacing that with something that's easier to use. So we've got coordinators as a shortcode. And when someone puts that on a Moodle page, it creates this kind of contact card for all of the module coordinators who are enrolled on that page. And that just kind of draws in the information from the user's profile fields. So they can add in their room postcode, And that links to our maps that we have at university so that a student can easily find them. And the key here is that the teacher doesn't have to worry about the HTML or about how to make this look good. They can just put in coordinators and it will be pre-populated. So as I say, this has been like a multi-year kind of thing. And we're kind of last year, we kind of started kind of thinking about, well, okay, we've kind of dealt with some of the visuals and how to make the site look more consistent. How about some of the content? You know, what should all courses have as a minimum? So that's kind of where we're coming to the idea of having a minimum requirements type plugin to help monitor this. So, you know, in deciding what we want as a minimum, you know, you could say, well, yeah, forums, they're really important. That's the main, probably not the main point of contact, but it's an important point of contact between teachers and their students. And our requirement is that it should be visible. Handbooks also, a module should have a handbook and it should also be visible. Assignments, there should be at least one assignment on a module, and the date should make sense, you know, so the date should be within the start and end date of a course. We use Talis Aspire for our reading lists. So we also kind of thought, well, okay, well, let's actually, we added this later and after we started doing this, but we'll add a resource list to a Moodle page. So the actual requirements for the minimum requirements for us was we wanted something that was very visible to teachers. And so for that, we kind of created it as a block. So this block automatically appears on a page. It can't be removed. And so this block should also show the status very clearly. So you can see we've got 4 ticks here. That shows you that they've all passed. It'll be 4 X's if they've not passed, and there'll be a warning triangle if there's some mixed results. We wanted this to be kind of rules based. So we want to be able to kind of create rules and also extendable so that we could add new rules to what a minimum requirement is. So a third party could add some more rules. So if I take the example of, say, hiding a news announcements forum, you can see that I've done that here. I've hidden the news forum. And on the minimum requirements block, that's now showing a warning triangle. So on this page, there's in fact more than one forum, but I've hidden the news forum. And if I follow the activity forum link, what I get is some feedback about why that's happened. And you see that there are 2 rules here. One is at least one of, so there must be at least one instance of a forum, and it needs to be visible. So that's the rule, and it fails because, it partially fails really, because there's a news forum and it's not visible. And the second rule here is there needs to be a news announcements forum. So that's, i.e., it's a news forum of the type news, and that must be visible. And that fails because we've got one news forum, but it's not visible. And we've got 2 other forums, but they're not news forums. So that's the kind of the idea behind the rule. So the at least one of kind of like rule is built in, and this can be applied to any activity that you've got, and block as well, actually, you've got installed on your Moodle. So this is a list of all the mods that are installed on my Moodle. And if I wanted to kind of say, well, glossaries, that's a required activity, then I would just from the multi-select just add glossary, and then that would instantly be active as a rule. I'll give you another example of a rule that we've created for the assignments. So we've got assignment due date. So the idea here is that the due date is later than the course start date. So we have like a rollover system where we create an individual module for each academic year, and we provide an easy link to the import facility in Moodle to copy over the previous year's content into the current year. but that doesn't change the dates in the assignments, for example. So this rule kind of ensures that the assignment due date is later than the start date of the module, because that's a very easy thing to miss. Okay, so for those of you who like a bit of code, here's some code, and this is what allows you to kind of like extend this plugin. So this plugin is called Block Minimum Standards, but if you created your own plugin, it might be local my minimum standards. And then if the function name just ends with minimum standards underscore definitions, then this plugin will pick up this definitions function. And the function needs to return an array, which essentially gives the location of the activity that you want to create a rule for. And you then give it a name and description, language strings for that rule, and a callback function. So another function that will be called by the minimum requirements plugin to run when recalculating minimum standards. So this callback function might look something a bit like this. The course ID is passed into it. You do some database query to find all the instances of your plugin, and then you do some processing to determine whether these activities pass or fail your rule, whatever your rule is. And then you just simply pass out two variables in an array. One is the overall status, and then the list of statuses for individual activities. And then that would automatically be presented on the kind of help page for each plugin. So that will process the rule and provide the language strings necessary for the help page. So when the kind of block is run, it calculates the score, if you like, for each activity, for each rule, and all the results are stored in a database, so they're not being run every time the page loads. Okay, and the benefit of that, oh sorry, before I go into the benefit, so they are recalculated based on events in Moodle. So when a course is created, updated, or deleted, then or a course module is created, updated, or deleted, then the scores are all kind of recalculated to determine if for a given activity it's successful or failed. That's just the activity, the recalculation calculator function. So the benefit of this really is that now that we've got some kind of data in the database about which minimum requirements have been met or not met, we can kind of query this data to produce some reports. And this kind of is really useful for identifying departments or people or modules that need a bit of help. So in this test example, you can see that education has got 7, I think it's probably handbooks that passed and 7 that failed. Maybe they're hidden. And we use the report custom SQL just to create these simple reports. So our findings about using this from our experience from the past year, the main one is that people are very resilient to promptings. So they, you know, despite our best efforts, they sometimes some people can ignore a red warning on a Moodle page. But it is, of course, just at the moment, just voluntary. It's something that we're working on with the senior management, and especially as kind of student experience goes higher and higher up the agenda. It's something that we're kind of working together with, and at some point it may become a mandatory thing, in which case then that's something that's enforceable. And it's important to remember that in the end, you know, these are just part of a toolkit for promoting consistency. So like dealing with how content is styled and presented, you know, what content is available is also part of that consistent journey that a student takes. So finally, you may be asking, where can I get this amazing plugin? Well, currently you can't. Partly that's because I'm afraid to kind of let it out in the public too much, in case I have to support lots of people with very, very specific requirements. But I mean, if you want to drop me a line, I'm more than happy to let you have a copy of it. Thank you very much for your time.